Partizan! Sorry. Hi, welcome, thank you ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the S2E10 episode, and today, as you have just guessed a couple of just seconds ago of my baritone singing, today we're going to cover the scapegoats or the usual suspects or the state enemies or the betrayers of Kosovo and Meragogia, and the raccoons, the gravediggers, the black crow, the black sheep of the state family, Partisano di Belgrado di Famiglione di Trazione. Anyway, what I actually wanted to talk about, how the Cody rules would say, I wanted to talk about how this victory, the weekend, not a singer ever since I was a kid, I was a legit. I'm talking about just a few days ago, where on Friday Partizan has defeated a Red Star prostitute 79-76, and I'm sure the Alhamdulillah had a very big blood pressure because you cannot beat Zvezdana in this state of Sorabendia. It's utterly forbidden. But I have to say, the game was rigged. So it was done for the peace in the house. Those are according to the state news or the news in general. The game was rigged from the start, and Alhamdulillah was Christopher Nolan, and he directed where Partizan beats his own favorite club by 3 points difference in a highly anticipated basketball eternal derby in the EuroLeague. But anyway, it was rigged. Yep, gravediggers and all people in Sorabendia will say it was rigged because of the piss in the house. Anyway, now the point I'm trying to make is here is Partizan defeated some random club on Sunday or Saturday, whatever the fuck. We've beaten them 3-2, and of course now EMT, the OnlyFans prostitute of the Serbian league, has increased prices to 3,000 dinars if you want to watch IMT getting deep-throated by Partizan Belgrade. Now, anyway, the scapegoats of this state has always been us, the gravediggers. Why? Because it's the best story to explain to the people in general. And why? Because, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos about Partizan Belgrade in general, so in 1945, when the other club and Partizan Belgrade have been made. So the other club was first made in March of 1945, and Partizan was made on 4th of October 1945, and blah blah. So people have been calling us communist twins, which is not so far from the truth. It's actually truth and factual, with the exception that the other club has actually thought about this, that basically that us, the Partizan Belgrade, have been the communist club, and they themselves have been the Chetnik clubs. What I mean by that is that they go by this schizophrenic idea. It's called always Serbia, never Cancer-Slavia, which is implying that, like, during the socialist era in Cancer-Slavia, you could have been called like Serbian. You can say I'm proudly Serbian and long live Draža in communist era, which is anyway, back to the main point. So ever since that, and the other club loves to say that we were favorites even in the Cancer-Slavia era, but that's not even remotely true, because at one point Partizan Belgrade was very close to the relegation from the main league in 1978, 7, whatever the fuck. The point is that if we were favorites, I don't think the Humper guy, the Mr. Chopavi, would have given us permission to be relegated from the Serbian league. No, sorry, Cancer-Slavia league, my bad. But when it comes to the case for the other club, that has never happened in history. But you know, we are the state project, we are the black crows of Sorabendia and Cancer-Slavia. It's always us, and it's always going to be us, which is I'm kind of fine with, because at the end of the day, if you actually think about it, so I have no problem with being called the traitor and the enemy of the state, and Ustasha, which is one of their favorite nicknames they give to us as fans of Partizan Belgrade. We are Croats. Tudjman loved us as their favorite son, blah blah blah. And it's kind of, it used to bother me much younger, but now I'm, yeah, whatever, dude, shut the fuck up. Nobody cares. But the state has always given, especially in the 90s during the Civil War, where Partizan was when the other club was at its prime in the early 90s, and so forth and so forward, that even Partizan has managed, not all the time, but a couple of times, to be up par, equal to the prime, the other club. But even in that state, the Yader Club was also a favorite of the state as well. So basically, when I'll give you an example that Željko Pantić made in his emisija, like on the 999 whatever the fuck. So he basically said that during the mid 2000s, that when there was this controversy around General Ratko Mladić, and that the Partizan Belgrade themselves fans had this song which was called but basically I'm just going to translate for you to be even more quicker and efficient. They basically said, if you surrender General Mladić, we'll take all the fucking rifles and we're going to fucking shoot you in the head. So that was in the mid 2000s, during the retarded era of Boris Glavić, one of the most useless presidents. He was like a white Obama. He was just smiling and saying some random weird faggot shit that nobody understood in the first place. You know, he wanted to wear suits and pretend like he was a very good uppity faggot and, you know, the upper class, whatever the fuck. But he was just like a retarded, useless guy who just exists for the sake of being existent. So, and to say that he was a fan of us, yeah, sure, dude. The same way. Here is my shout out to the Boston Celtics fan. Guys, here's the logic from the other club. So if I buy one time a jersey for Boston Celtics, that immediately implies that I've been the biggest fan of Boston Celtics in the past 50 plus years. Trust me bro, mržbu pičku materinu. So anyway, when the era of Boris Glavić had started, so what actually boiled down to is that the other club has inherited this schizophrenia of belief where somehow we were now responsible. We were like the I don't know, like an entity that was circling around in Sorabendia, and where we were responsible for every single bad thing that has happened in the state. So when they had their own Vucelas and Vazuras in the red state, in the other club, that was their entire fault, because it had nothing to do with us. So you had your own spies and you took them out of the club, and actually backfired like a decade later for us. But if I give you the argument, so if you look back in history for the Serbian First League, the main league, the only time that they have suffered any serious defeat was in February 2007, when it was 4-2 for Partizan Belgrade. Ever since that, no severe defeat has ever transpired again under Boris Glavić, where they were the favorites. I'm sorry, we were the favorites as usual. Because I'll give an example, that 4-2 was in 2007. The next serious defeat they had suffered from us was 10 years later, 3-1, where Leonardo scored twice and Tavamba, ti ne znaš da volim te ja. So we had beaten them like in the span of a decade. Yeah, a decade, and we were the favorites in Boris Glavić era. Sure thing, buddy, you just gotta lower down the heroin on LSD, whatever the fuck you're consuming. And that entire perception was kind of really annoying and pissed off, because we're trying to this day to explain to them that he was just like a ficus, like an NPC president. That's his entire function, was to be an NPC guy. And if you think that he had any questions in the state about Partizan, I'll give an example. So summer 2010, where Partizan eliminated Anderlecht, and you're probably going to ask who was the sponsor at the time for Partizan Belgrade, and I'm going to say, as every gravedigger raccoon knows, the sponsor for Partizan Belgrade during elimination of Anderlecht on the penalties was, wait for it, I'm sorry, nobody. Because we had issues with bill electricity, and it was threatened to be, you know, stuff like that, and to be cut off and never to have any penny. But the other club is going to say we had like a millions. It was raining all the time. Like in Partizan Belgrade era in 2010, it was reported that the money was falling from the sky, and on it said the other club is the worst club in the world, and it had Benjamin Franklin's falling down, the Jeffersons, whatever the fuck. So you get my sarcastic picture of the gravediggers from them. And you have to understand that if we had no penny, and especially in the era of General Duško Vujošević, and they had to use buses, and they had no money for charter flights, and they had to do it by themselves to endure themselves. So you saying we were favorites, yeah dude, we were so many favorites that I remember that Sergio Llull was almost close to joining Partizan Belgrade, and Morientes to come to Partizan Belgrade, and Even at one point in time, Alex Shved was very close, but they kind of said, all three of them, two from basketball, one for football, they all said, we have no problem with that, but it won't be interesting because, we would win all the time. And even in that era of Boris Glavic, you can be compared to Alhamdulillah, which cannot be compared at all. You see that, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, the last time we defeated them severely or seriously was 2017 and 2007. So you tell me between 2007 to 2012, so most of the victories of Partizan Belgrade, even that Red Star managed, I have had to mention their name unfortunately, the other club, the score was actually 3-2, I think, one time in 2012, late 2012, and then they had also some victories over us. But the point is that when Partizan has beaten them, it wasn't like 5-0, 6-0, 7-2, 5-3, 4-2, whatever the fuck. It was one time in 2007, but still, the other defeats that they had suffered from us was 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, and it was over and over. It's like a repeating cycle. It's always like 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals, 1-3, 0-3, whatever the fuck. But it was never like anything serious where we had beaten them like 6-0. We've beaten them like 7-1 in 1954, whatever the fuck. But you get the point. And that was like 70 years ago. I mean, you get the picture. But the point is that I'm getting tired of listening to the same excuses for Boris Glavic era. And especially when they blame Tole, the main Cthulhu guy, the main villain, the smoker from X-Files. He was always responsible for the defeat of Red Star because they think that for some reason Tole Karadžić is some sort of Marlon Brando from The Godfather, that he had fingers and the puppet master behind the scenes of the Football Association of Sorabendia, which was MPC at the time. Even though, I gotta tell you the bitter truth, even back then it was a shitty national team, so even now even worse. So even under Veljko Pirinović, you guys are going to suck cock in any European or World Championship. It's the bitter truth. Now with this BS that I've been hearing, and now the reason, the thumbnail and the explanation of my video is that after the arrival of the mighty Alhamdulillah for the Red Star, now the Partizan is being presented as the very Ratko Mladic of Sorabendia. He's like a mixture of Ratko Mladic, Radovan Karadžić, Gavrilo Princip, Vuk Brankovic. So we're like these evil grave diggers. We came there to suck souls and to destroy the very fabric of Serbian existence, and they're the proud patriots who are going to save us from the evil grave digger Srbočetniks, za suvereno Bosnu, ba nemoj me nervirati, to su Srbočetnici. The same schizophrenia that was in Bosnia and Herzegovina in the 90s, so you get the sarcastic picture. But the point is that with this bullshit called evil grave diggers, which it's kind of running its course, and you would agree that you keep calling us like that for the past 17 years or so, if I'm not mistaken, even more. Let's say even 20. Let's circle it to fucking 20. For 20 years, from 2005 to now, and the argument, it's kind of getting dry and not so much interesting because people had gotten used to listening to that crap, especially from Partizan Belgrade. And Alhamdulillah is now having a blood pressure because every time we've beaten them in any sports, like a basketball recently, like a few days ago, or we didn't beat them in this season in football 2-1 because the kids were unprepared, and we still owe money, and especially because of the Hog Vazur and Ustaša Vučović having given us a shit ton of debt, because those cocksuckers should have been killed like 50,000 years ago, but it is what it is. But the point is that in this Casey context, to being presented as always the bad guys, eventually it's going to run its course. And don't take me wrong, don't make me mistake, but what I'm trying to say is that I love my world of the antagonist, so that my club is the antagonist. I fucking refuse for us to be baby faces so we can carry your sorry Red Star asses on our backs, so you guys can say yes, we were always the good guys. So if you go back in history, 1945, where they were founded by Krcun, who was like a younger brother, as I mentioned in one of my videos for Partizan Belgrade, like a younger brother of Ante Pavelić, so you can get the picture how much he loves Serbs. But the point is that this BS about, Partizan always being the bad guy, there is no problem with us being the bad guys, but when we apply being a bad guys, you guys are like, that's not how it's supposed to be done. Well, you call us bad guys. So antagonists don't give a fuck. We're like if you guys played chess ever in your life. So imagine like two figures on the field, the queen and the king, and we're the queen. We can go whatever the fuck we want, say whatever the fuck we want, and act like the fuck we want. You guys are the king, and you guys cannot move that much in chess. So we're the queen. We can do whatever the fuck we want. Sorry, those are the rules of the chess. I didn't make it. You can blame Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov was fucking based. Google it if you're asking why. Now the point is that in this Game of Thrones from Temu, Game of Thrones, now Partizan currently leading 4 points behind the other club, but you have to understand that there is something revolutionary like Che Guevara from Temu is going to come on spring, and it's going to be the spring of the other club, where the revolution, my friend, where they turn into comrades. Now the filiales of their clubs, they are going to be like very much like a jihadist movement towards us, to the Partizan Belgrade. I can mention, and I'm going to mention as fuck now, the OnlyFans prostitutes from IMT, Vojvodina, Radnički Niš, Kragujevac, Napredak, and all other fucking cocksuckers who serve to the Alhamdulillah, the fucking, slaves to the master and stuff like that. So you guys can try, but we're gonna fucking evaporate you in the spring. Mark my words. So if you want us to be the bad guys, in your eyes you're good guys. That's my message from one of the greatest coaches of all time. Google it if you don't know who that is. So I just wanted to vent out a little bit and say I'm really glad that Partizan has beaten the other club 79-76, Napredak 3-2. Sorry guys, there is no premium paychecks for you. You can only try OnlyFans. So thank you for coming to the channel for the S2E2. Become straight edge, become Partizan Belgrade supporter, because you're going to see the very beauty and aesthetics of it. Become straight edge, believe that Christ is king, and remember, Partizan is going to win the championship sooner or later. And trust me, the Alhamdulillah is going to die from the heart attack. And it's not that much of a loss if he dies, or the Choki puddle. Whoever of those cocksuckers die, there's going to be a lot of taverns with rakias and shit. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to this channel. I'm just a writer, I'm just like a black cat writing and talking shit like a raccoon who loves its own club. And of course, Chelsea is playing now as we speak. One big love for Partizan Belgrade and Chelsea. And remember, Christ is king. And I will see you soon for S2E11. And the topic of the S2E11 is going to be